So today I'm going to talk about pseudoscience. I have spent some time going through lots of different things. I'm going to focus heavily on more of alternative medicine type of pseudoscience because I feel that that is inherently dangerous for a lot of reasons. Good morning. So let's talk a little bit about what pseudoscience is, all right? Cherry picking data. Let's see. All right, here is pseudoscience as the particular definition if you look it up. So essentially what pseudoscience is, it's fake science. It's claimed to be scientific, but the thing is there's no evidence, and it's not constrained by the appropriate scientific methods that we would normally see with the scientific process of more reputable types of science, including those involving journals, peer review. I did a whole segment just on peer review. So if you want to kind of get more information in regards to that, I can shoot you a link about a video that I did on peer review. But pseudoscience is problematic for lots of different reasons. Now, here's the different things that we see, especially with pseudoscience, and how to kind of pick it out. Like, how do you tell if it's science or if it's fake science? Well, here's stuff for fake science. It has sensational headlines. This can cure cancer. This will reverse your autoimmune disease. This will make you detoxified and overall healthy. It'll make you younger. So these sensational headlines tend to draw you in, or the clickbait of fake science, so to speak. There's usually no control group. So when you're doing a scientific study, you need to compare to find out if something works or not. You need a control group to show what would happen if they didn't have this product as seen on TV. They also misinterpret their results. And since there's no peer review involved in pseudoscience, they can take their results and think, well, this is the results that we wanted, and it's because of this reason. Well, it could be lots of different reasons. That's why we have peer review, to make sure you didn't make a mistake. There's usually some sort of conflict of interest. So if you're looking at a particular case, you want to see who's doing the funding. All right, conflict of interest. You know, Nestle one time funded an American Heart Association study to try to show that eating chocolate is heart healthy. Nestle funded it. Conflict of interest, you know? So, hey, so you kind of look through that and see causation, correlation. Just because the numbers match up doesn't necessarily mean one causes another. If you look at the Nicolas Cage movies that come out, there's an increased amount of pool drownings. So I don't know if that's linked to suicide because it's a Nick Cage film, or if everybody's just so excited they want to have pool parties and watch his movies. No, they have nothing to do with each other. They also cherry pick their results. They're like, well, this study didn't give us what we need. Let's toss that out. This study gave us what we needed, so we're going to pick this, and we're going to say this is our data. But they've thrown out everything else that negates everything else that they've done. That's problematic. They use speculative language. They say things like, well, it looks like this does this. It's possible that this does this. They don't have any definitive language to say, this causes this, or this made this happen. It looks like this. It seems to do this. There's nothing definitive about their studies. There's no blind testing. So if you're looking at a weight loss product, all the people know that they're taking this particular pill for weight loss, and they're like, hey, and they're like, but diet and exercise, but take this pill, it'll enhance it. But there's likely no control group at all, you know, compared to the two. And these people know that what they're taking is supposed to give a desired effect. So they can say, oh, hey, look, I lost all of this weight taking this pill. Well, you might have just lost all that weight taking the pill because you dieted and exercised, because there's no control group and you knew you were taking the pill that was supposed to give you this effect. The results are not reproducible. So a lot of these studies, you can say, hey, we got these results. You give it to anybody else, they're like, oh, you know, I couldn't get the same thing. Spot on. So it's like with the Andrew Wakefield stuff. Nobody else can reproduce those results. And he came out saying he falsified that data. That's pseudoscience. And it's exceptionally irresponsible in that regard because he was a researcher and he had a conflict of interest because he was being funded by a particular group to try to prove that another group had vaccines that cause autism. All right. Also, a tiny sample size. If there's like, we had 20 individuals and 12 of them had this result. How would a Nestle company, for instance, have a legit study done if they don't pay for it? Well, if you want a study done, all right, you would need to, have several, I would say, have several different groups, take a look at it and have an outside group, again with the peer review thing. I don't think this was actually published anywhere. I can double check on that particular study. I don't think it was published in a journal. It was just featured by the American Heart Association. And there are some links to particular things within chocolate that are flavonoids, but you can also find that in wine. Now that doesn't mean go and eat a giant chocolate bar. Independent studies, yes, outside of a particular, group. So there's a lot of problem with some of the sciences, but it's important that you look at these conflicts of interest in order to figure out, okay, where are they getting the money? Was it an independent study? Was it just this group, or did several groups have a look? So that's another thing you can do to kind of get that. Now, the tiny sample size, if you have like 20 people in your study and 12 of them gave you the desired result, you're like, the majority of our particular group gave us the desired result. It's tiny. That's like so insignificant. Even if it's 100 people and you're like 85 people had the results that we wanted out of 100, you can't. 85% of 100 people does not equate to millions, so you can't rule that out. So look at the sample size, and if there are no publications in any peer-reviewed journals, you're likely looking at some pseudoscience. If it's just a book somebody wrote on wellness, that's not subjected to peer review. That's just a personal opinion piece, and like, I did this stuff here and I read these things and these are my thoughts about it. That's just a standard book. It's not a textbook. If it's not a textbook, just throw it out. If it's not a publication in a journal, a good established journal, what's the best sample size? It depends on what the study is. So the larger the sample size, the more likely you can equate it to a larger population. Like Jeff Sessions investigating Trump, not independent. All right. So what's the problem with pseudoscience? It's got a history throughout time. If you've ever watched A Million Ways to Die in the West, they touch a little bit on pseudoscience with like a snake oil at the fair kind of thing. It's a pretty funny film. So this snake oil cures all. It's not a valid science. It can promote panic. You could sit there and say, oh my gosh, I have toxins in me? Dihydrogen monoxide. It's overused by athletes. It promotes a type of panic. Oh, it's okay. So, you got this over type of this panic stuff that's going on. People think that there's something wrong with them, and they're like, oh my gosh, I've got this happening to me. I've got these toxins in me. I got to get rid of. You got a liver. It already does that. And people have lived a long time not detoxifying themselves. It gives false hope as well. So if you're dealing with particular, patients with this type of disease and they're not getting results right away from their medical care provider, this can give them false hope in thinking that if I take this herbal remedy, my cancer will go away, my autoimmune disease will stop. That's not true. It's misinformation, and this is dangerous. Goop does that. I'm going to talk about Goop today because they have really gotten on my ragey buttons. What's good snake? What's a good snake to use for effective snake oil? I don't know. That sounds like a scientific study to me. But it's dangerous because a lot of people may forego their medical treatment in order to pursue these types of herbal remedies that have absolutely no basis in anything. So, one of my favorite lines from The Princess Bride is, he says, life is pain, Highness. Anyone who says differently is selling something. That's absolutely true. The goal of pseudoscience is for profit. It's not for wellness because they're not held to scientific standards. They're there to make money. And that's what it is. The ultimate goal is not wellness, because a lot of the times, and I'm going to talk about the FDA and what they do, they're there to get money. They're there to make money, and they make a lot of money, in fact. Let's talk about that versus the myth of Big Pharma. Yes, Big Pharma's goal is profit. It is. It's profit, just like alternative medicine. But the goal is effective treatments, because pharmaceutical companies and medical device companies have to meet scientific standards in order for them to be used to treat, cure any particular disease or any type of defect. They are held to those standards. That's where it's different from pseudoscience. They're not held to the scrutiny of other scientific experts. So let's talk about the figures here. Alternative medicine just in the US makes $34 billion annually. $60 billion goes to weight loss. So these are massive freaking industries that make all kinds of money based on, hey, don't trust medical science, and if you don't have insurance, that's okay. Come over our way. We'll give you stuff that may or may not help. Results not typical, but that's what they say, and that's how they're able to make a lot of money off of this. Now, according to some things that I've read, on Smithsonian has a great article, I can link you to that. As far as alternative medicine, only a third of the products are actually tested, and they don't have to be FDA approved, which means there's no guarantee that they even work. And that's due to a law that was passed in 1994. And I'm going to talk about that. Now, I'm basing a lot of this on U.S. knowledge, as the fact is that I'm based in the U.S. and I have more information available to me in regards to the practices here. So that's where I'm going to be focusing on those. Let's talk about the FDA. What do they do? Why do we need them? So they're here to ensure that products are safe. Actually, a snake called oily snake in East India is very poisonous with the snake oil. So let's talk about the FDA. They usually spend about 6 months investigating a particular device or drug. They go through and check all of the studies, and they do independent studies to make certain that it's proven to be effective, that it's safe, and the fact is it can't be marketed or sold otherwise to treat or cure any type of diseases until it meets these standards. Now, the FDA does take a look at alternative medicine, but they only really categorize it. They don't claim that it works. They don't check for its safety. They don't do any of that. They can do recalls, and I'm going to talk about some very scary recalls that the FDA has done. They actually do get involved with alternative medicine when it comes to fraud. Now, fraud is a big, big problem in this regard, because of the fact that if they claim, now here's the thing, if an alternative medicine claims that it can cure a disease, then it has to be categorized as a drug, and then it's subjected. It is then subjected to all of the different investigations. Now, the FDA does not guarantee that it works, that anything works beyond nutritional and aesthetics. They only try to make certain that it doesn't cause damage unless it's like a medical device. You know, if it cures a disease or treats a particular disease, that's when it falls under the drugs. Anything else, it's fair game, and it can have all kinds of harmful things. So let's talk a little bit about these particular recalls. These recalls are actually kind of scary. So Zicam. Let me switch to a different, I gotta pull this up. Woo! Sorry, it's gone black. Ah, there we go. So let's talk about Zicam. Zicam. Many people state that the loss of sense of smell occurred within the first dose of the Zicam product, although some people report it happened after later doses. The loss of sense of smell may be long-lasting or even permanent in some people. So what exactly does this mean? This means that Zicam, when it was used to kind of stop the flu, when it was used, for colds, it caused people to actually lose their sense of smell permanently. This wasn't just some small amount of damage. People can't smell anymore because of Zicam. So, and your sense of smell is kind of important. So, the FDA is not bound by the law to ensure that a product is safe before they use it. Now let's talk about this thing. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Highland teething. It is scary. Now they'll market it for weight loss. Yeah, don't shove things in your nose. Just eat this Zicam swab. So let's talk about the Highland teething. Also, sense of smell, food tastes weird, right? Yes, it does. Oh my gosh. So this particular product would help aid babies who were teething and had that pain. All right. So it's not, it was a homeopathic remedy. And it's Highland teething tablets. This particular thing contains belladonna, also known as nightshade. Now, if you're familiar with movies or any type of history, you know that nightshade is a poison that's been used, to poison people. They put this in teething tablets. So people gave this to their babies. All right, it's extremely toxic, and it's found in the berries in the plants. But it's been used as a poison and a medicine throughout history, but it's primarily toxic. So there was a big recall on this because people were giving this to their children. So their babies, con suppressant. Ugh, God, man. Yeah, it's really scary. Let's talk about Ayurveda. So the FDA has a lot of information on their website about Ayurveda medicine. CNS, sorry. Oh, okay. So in accordance with current law, the FDA does not evaluate these products, or any products actually, before they are marketed. This means their safety, quality, and effectiveness cannot be assured by the FDA. Now, Ayurveda has heavy metals, which can be toxic for certain populations. So essentially, let's talk about this. These heavy metals have been found to accumulate in various organs. They can cause problems with your heart, your brain, your kidneys, your bone, your liver, all kinds of major types of organs of your body. They hinder biological function, and it is impossible to live in an environment free of heavy metals. If it's in small doses, it's not that big of a deal, but you want to limit your exposure to these toxins. Ayurveda has all kinds of heavy metals in it that can actually cause a lot of problems for you. So the FDA has a very, very strong stance on where they sit on Ayurveda, but they can still be marketed in the U.S. A lot of these products can, but until it shows a distinct population-wide issue, they can't do recall like they could with Zicam, where it causes permanent loss of smell. So we're going to get into a few other things. So let's hop over to here. They can accumulate, but it's not, we get some exposure to heavy metals, but your body does tend to break some things down. I can look up a bit more on what the lethal doses are and what the biological processes are of eliminating heavy metals from your body. Let me do a little bit of research on that so I can get you the correct information before I comment. So I want to make sure I do that. So no problem. So let's talk about dietary supplements. There was a law passed in 1994 called the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act. That's DSHEA. It essentially classified dietary supplements as food. And since it's classified as food, this prevents the FDA from regulating them as strictly as drugs in regards to their efficacy, safety, and marketing claims. So if it's classified as a food item and it doesn't do any particular harm to you, the FDA has got their hands tied. So they're like, okay, you guys can have these weight loss drugs, you can have these weight loss supplements. Notice they don't say drugs, they don't say it cures obesity, it doesn't cure anything. It's just an additive to your food. So where it actually matters is labeling. Labeling is everything. So a labeling of a supplement is not permitted to treat a particular disease or a condition. So the marketing statements that suggest an effect on the structure or the function of the body are allowed. So you say, be more alert, feel better all over. A generalized sweeping statements are allowed as long as there's no specific claim for a particular disease or a condition. So let's talk a little bit about Goop. They've made me a bit ragey. I actually went to their site quite a bit. I spent a little while picking apart some of their supplements and the things that they provide. Now, Goop is represented by a celebrity named Gwyneth Paltrow. She's been in the news a lot lately, and she's actually said that she thinks criticism, I'm not the only one. Yeah, I'm sure I'm not. I've been reading more about it. So she says that criticism from scientists is dangerous. She also says bee stings aren't so bad. Well, if you're allergic to bee stings, they're pretty bad. And she says to shove these jade eggs in your vagina and detoxify your vagina. You have a natural pH for that, and your liver detoxifies everything, so don't put rocks in your lady bits. That's just not a good idea. She also steams it with like heat. And she also says there's certain herbs. I might be incorrect on this, so if I am, I'll happily correct the statement. They put roots and herbs in your lady bits, and I'm going, no, but okay. So that's Goop. Okay, they have their whole lady stuff section, and then they have supplements. So I'm gonna you wouldn't put that near your man bits. So let's talk about these supplements. They have cute little things that say, why am I so effing tired? Gee golly whiz. So you can go and subscribe. It's $90 a month if you just buy their supplements one time, or it's $75 a month if you subscribe to them. All right, I looked through the ingredients, and I won't make you read everything, but I've got them, and I'm going to post them for you. Everyone's tired. Everyone needs a pill. So if you go to Walgreens, you can get the same type of stuff for $12 for 100 tablets. And they have fancy words here that just are stuff that you find in salad, fish, and standard vitamins. So let's look a little bit at why am I so effing tired? So here, let me switch to this one. Now, I'm not going to make you read this entire label, but I'm going to kind of go through just for a second. All they have here are just standard vitamins that you would normally see with any particular brand of vitamin. Now, they have an excessive amount of D-calcium, niacin, thiamine, vitamin B12, and riboflavin. Now, you will pee these out of your system if your body doesn't need it. However, if you do have too much of the water-soluble vitamins, there are problems that can be associated with that, and I'll talk about those in a minute. Now, the only ones that will actually be stored in your body are vitamins A, D, E, and K. So I have one more. I have one more to show you in regards to goop. Let me show you this. This here has phytoblend multivitamins, omega-3s, and they have these adaptogen blends and licorice root. So they have all of these things. Phyto means plants. So if you eat salad, you're going to get a lot of that. Or if you eat vegetables, you're going to get a lot of that. Omega-3 you get from fish and gelatin. Kind of easy there. Also, olive oil. So if you eat with olive oil, you're going to get that. There's herbs that they have listed here that are not even tested for effectiveness. They have other words called microcrystalline cellulose. Guess what makes up plant cell walls? Cellulose. Eat some vegetables. Don't pay them $75 for this. Licorice root, diuretic, olive oil. So this is just kind of crazy. So I went on Walgreens website. All right, you can go on Walgreens.com and get you some Centrum Silver for women 50 plus. I just snagged one. Notice it's $12 and there's a sale right now. Buy one, get one half off. So if you happen to be particularly deficient in regards to your vitamins, which you should check with your doctor if you are, you can get the same thing here. So let's have a look at what that is. So they have much of the same vitamins as you would find on any of the Goop supplements. I do all my research by web. I need to get out more. I go to the store and stuff, but I don't want to like have to pick it up. It's faster to go this way, and you know, diuretic and olive oil. So you can get a lot more information quickly, and I know where to look on the internet to find the reputable sources. So we have a lot of the same stuff here that you would find in that particular one. So I needed to tell you though, use vitamins if they're doctor recommended. I mean, and your doctor's going to prescribe vitamins to you if they think you need it. For instance, prenatal vitamins and that sort of thing. So unless you're particularly deficient, your doctor is not going to subscribe you iron or anything else, or prescribe you any of these particular vitamins unless they feel that you need it. Yes, there's a doctor there. It's a picture. It's not a real one, I'm afraid. And too many vitamins are bad. So certain water-soluble vitamins in excess can cause nerve problems, like too much vitamin B6 can cause nerve problems, too much niacin can cause flushing, and excessive vitamin C can cause kidney stones. So if you're taking a lot of vitamins, you might be doing more harm than good. You get your vitamins from food, and if you have a particularly malnourished diet, your doctor's going to tell you what to take. Vitamin D is toxic. Any idea if melatonin has any benefits? I'm not certain right off, but let me look. I'm making notes. If I forget and you ask me something that I don't have the answer to right away, hit me up on Twitter and I'll find answers for you quickly. Alright, so I'm going to hit Goop a bit more. Look at this particular title. A simple cure for autoimmune disease? This angered me. I'm going to be honest. This entire section, and you can go on their website and you can look at it, this angered me because I know people who suffer autoimmune diseases, and if it was just as easy as changing your diet, don't you think they would have done that? And it's not. It doesn't necessarily claim to cure autoimmune disease. It has incorrect info in this particular article, and it's a sensationalized headline. Do I know anything about CLL? I'm not certain what CLL is. You'll have to send me information as what it is, and I can find out for you and get back to you on that. But I will. I do want to answer your questions. I don't know everything all the time, but I do know how to get reputable information and from good sources, and I can link you to that on Twitter when I get a chance. I looked into this though. Oh my God. No problem. Happy to help. So let's look at this. This made me kind of mad. So let me switch over to here. This is a quote from their site, and it says, Since bacterial and viral genes make up 99% of our combined genes, yes, you are only 1% human by genetic code and 90% human by actual cell count, everything that happens to us starts in the gut. This is based on the myth that you have more bacterial cells than you do actual human cells. Goop is incorrect. Nature came out and talked about this particular study, and I have the link at the bottom, and I can send you that as well. This came out in 2016, and this was based on the idea that they based it on the count of bacteria within the colon, and they thought that that would carry through the small intestine all the way up through the esophagus, but they weren't taking into consideration that there are not so much bacteria in the small intestine and in this esophagus. It was taking into account the entire digestive system based on what was found in just the colon. That's problematic. So that particular myth that's been decades old, and that's the thing about science. Science will come out and say, hey, we were incorrect about this. We don't have as many bacterial cells in our body as we do human cells. Here's why. It was on the idea that amount carried through the small intestine all the way up through the esophagus. Is that why Einstein has this tongue? I love that picture. But, so that particular myth was debunked. And Goop is incorrect in that regard. And they're trying to say that you have to have a certain amount of bacteria in your colon or in, your digestive tract in order to function as a person. And that's why autoimmune diseases happen to people, is they have a wrong amount in there. That's dangerous. That is dangerous because it's inaccurate and it's not true. There are some particular autoimmune type of diseases that are associated with gut bacteria. Just by eliminating certain foods, it's reversed or taken care of, but that's not across the board in everything. It just uses the keyword that sparks interest without the real science behind it. That's true. That's exactly right. So let's look at another thing that they say that makes me quite ragey and angry. This shows a complete and total lack of understanding basic pharmacy, all right? Basic pharmacy knowledge, all right? The supplements, I had been using many of them in the lab. Now, this is I should tell you, this is the medical doctor they have, the single medical doctor they have that's supporting Goop. He is basing everything on his personal observations, which are not verified at all. So let's read this. The supplements, I had been using them, many of them, in the lab intravenously to help hearts stay alive for 48 hours for transplant, or to even bring dead hearts back to life after an hour in a dead body. I was giving these compounds intravenously, but it never occurred to me to swallow them, because you can't swallow IV meds. You can't do that. This is basic pharmacy science. IV meds and supplements have 100% bioavailability. Oral supplements undergo metabolism in the liver. Goop has no substantiation to this claim, and there are no journal articles cited. Gwyneth Frankenstein. So this particular medical doctor, who is a cardiac doctor who, pumped your heart, swapped it out for another one, might go through and work with your veins, is claiming to know something about autoimmune diseases. No, first. Secondly, you cannot swallow intravenous anything because it's 100% bioavailability. So what that means is when you get an IV drug, it's also been shown that neurosurgeons are idiots too, i.e. presidential candidates. So when you get an IV drug, that means it bypasses your liver altogether and it is 100% available for your body to use. Oral supplements or oral drugs have to undergo conversion in the liver. Now the liver is going to break it down into different products, and there's no guarantee that it'll even work if you take an IV mint drug and then it processes in your liver. It might break it down into compounds that are harmful or useless. So oral availability of drugs and intravenous drugs, they have to pass through certain metabolic processes in order for them to work. So he's going through, there are no journal articles cited on this particular site. There's no substantiation to this claim that he was able to inject a dead heart with supplements and vitamins to make it come back to life again after it had been in a body for an hour. There was this one time I did this one thing, hold my beer. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. It doesn't sound at all like anything that's substantiated or there's any proof of. This next one made me really, really angry. So let me show you this one. Oh boy. So this one's not the one that was the most ragey for me. A heart brought back to life, is that even possible? If it's been in a body for an hour and frozen, you know, possibly. It could possibly be just fine, but, you know, what are you going to talk about? What is dead and what is not? So it's absolutely ridiculous. Nerium anti-aging is made from poisonous oleander plant, causes skin to swell and wrinkles smooth out. Maybe the cells. Yes. So let's look at this one. There's a Q&A section on the same site about autoimmune diseases. What are the biggest diet culprits and contributing factors to autoimmune diseases? Okay. Hold them up here. Love it. Okay, so he says some of the biggest dietary pitfalls often involve eating so-called healthy foods that humans were never designed to eat. As hard as it is to believe, plants do not want to be eaten. They were here first. Where do you think we get our food, Mr. MD cardiologist? We get all of our food from plants. If you eat a cow eats plants. I mean, they protect themselves and their seeds by putting proteins in their leaves and seeds called lectins. Gluten is by far the most famous lectin, but what most people don't know is that it's quite a minor one. Seeing me, quite a minor one. I mean, difference always put up a fight before getting eaten. And that most gluten-free substitutes have far worse lectins. Half of my patients with autoimmune disease avoid gluten before seeing me, but did not fully improve until I removed other lectins from their diet. Quinoa, corn, beans, and nightshades like potatoes, tomatoes, peppers, and others are loaded with lectins. The CDC states that 20 to 30% of all cases of food poisoning in the U.S. occur from lectins in undercooked beans, and plants simply do not want their seeds to be eaten. Cooking beans diminishes the amount of lectin, though some remains. Okay, I truly have no words for this nonsense. I looked up at the CDC. I couldn't find the statistic at all. I spent a lot of time combing the CDC trying to find all of these poisonous and awful plants that are associated with food poisoning. 75% of food poisoning is associated with bacterial type of problems. Salmonella, botulism, this sort of thing. That would leave about 25% associated possibly with plants. It's so insignificant that I tried to find on the CDC the stat involved with this, and I just can't. Cutting gluten from my diet completely relieved your celiac symptoms, so that's wrong. Now, celiac disease is something else. Celiac is associated with gluten, you know, so it is associated with gluten intake, and you're told by your doctor to do that. Maybe he talked to the night janitor at the CDC. And so the poisons that I look for in association with the plants are parts of plants that we don't eat anyway. So I don't see anybody going out and getting poison ivy. Nobody's really eating oleander, white oleander. I mean, nobody's really making that part of their diet. And so I really find it problematic. I couldn't find any stats that he said that were associated with that in regards to plants not wanting to be eaten, because everything that we eat is associated with plant energy. Cows, they eat grass. If you eat a cow, you're eating plant food as well. Chickens, same thing. They eat corn. So even if you're a carnivore exclusively, you're still going to get energy from primarily a plant source. So it's absolutely ridiculous, because they want to hide the truth. They do want to hide the truth. So let's look at this last particular one. This got me where I was really ragey. This is the most dangerous thing about goop. Which autoimmune diseases are the most responsive to diet changes? What do you recommend? This was a question posed to them, and this is on their site. So he says, this medical doctor that's a cardiologist and doesn't really work with autoimmune diseases, said that it cannot be cured or put into remission by simple dietary changes and supplementation. So he starts with that, all right? He starts with that. And then he goes, in October of 2016, I presented a paper at the Pasteur Institute in Paris showing 78 patients with autoimmune diseases like lupus, Crohn's, MS, rheumatoid arthritis, and colitis, who were cured by these manipulations. Autoimmune diseases come from the gut and is cured in the gut. If you have an autoimmune disease, treat your gut and the disease will subside. Well, it depends entirely on the autoimmune disease and if it's associated with digestion. If it's not, then it's not going to do anything. Notice he puts the disease in quotes, and he eliminates any particular personal responsibility by saying, he has yet to see any autoimmune disease that cannot be cured or put into remission by simple dietary changes and supplementation. This is all a very subjective statement, and it can be taken two different ways. Either he thinks it can be cured by this, or he's relieving himself of responsibility. Yes, he doesn't say that. And so there is no link to his published paper. It's not even published. There's no evidence. He eliminates all of responsibility for himself to say this. Now, he might be loosely basing it on a particular paper that was published in regards to the Western diet. The Western diet being, and I put that in quotes because that's what they do in the paper, high fats, cholesterol, excessive sugar, and salt intake has been shown to contribute to obesity, diabetes, cancer, heart problems, and there may be a link now to autoimmune diseases, but that's preventative. You have a genetic predisposition for certain diseases, and there are environmental factors that can trigger an onset of it, including autoimmune diseases, but there's nothing substantial that shows that changing your diet can reverse these diseases unless they are associated with a dietary, autoimmune type of problem, like celiac, like Crohn's, like IBS. Even IBS really isn't autoimmune, but there's certain diseases that are associated with your gastrointestinal system. By changing your diet, subsides the symptoms, but it doesn't eradicate the disease fully. It just doesn't. And so this really, really, really makes me angry because of the fact is, it's irresponsible. It's saying if you change your way you eat, you're going to get rid of your autoimmune disease and everything's going to be fine. And it just is wrong. There are some other companies that do that with cancer. If you just change your diet, well, if you change your diet, you're going to feel better anyway. If you exercise, you're going to feel better anyway. That's just how it is because you're changing the nutrition that you're putting into your body and you're making stuff available to it that it hasn't had before, and you're cutting out excessive amounts of anything else that has been linked to diseases. So this is a problem with that. So let me get to the next one here. Here we go. So let's talk, kind of wrap everything up a bit with pseudoscience. Goop is absolutely irresponsible. They're wrong. They're just flat out wrong. They're manipulative, and they're taking people's money, preying on fears and hopes that since medical science doesn't seem to cure autoimmune disease yet, look at them, it promotes a distrust. So it's harmful because of the fact that people may forego medical treatment in the fact that it's not being as effective as they'd like. It gives false hope, it preys on their fears, and it generates distrust of real science. So when you look at this here, coconut oil cures everything, but Big Pharma doesn't want you to know about that. Eating fruit and vegetables will ward off the flu. Homeopathy, more effective than conventional medicine. But these statements are not like investigated by the FDA. And results not typical. And then you've got other things. Bill Gates is depopulating the earth through eugenics programs. So you've got a lot of different things here that are problematic, that promote a distrust in science, which is counterproductive, especially with everything that it takes to go through just to get a particular item published, or to get a particular treatment published or used. So let's kind of wrap up things. I'm so angry at Goop. I'm trying to be not super angry with Goop. Oh, okay, you gotta go. Thanks for hopping on. So, pseudoscience. They claim to be scientific. There's no evidence for anything. The main goal is profit. They want to make money. If they didn't want to make money, it wouldn't be so freaking expensive. It'd be cheaper than your normal drugs that you would get for, in U.S. side. It would be cheaper if it wasn't just for money. There's the goal is profit, and it's not constrained by appropriate scientific method. It's just not there. The science isn't there. The data isn't there. There's no peer review. There's no FDA regulations. They can say whatever they want as long as they're not trying to cure a disease. They use disease with quotes, it's like that's what they call it. That's not really what we're doing here. So that's kind of what they do. So that has been the Science of Pseudoscience, based on primarily alternative medicine. Unchecked greed is dangerous. It is. It is absolutely dangerous. First time catching me live. Woohoo! So I need to take a moment and thank my patrons. I also need to add Tony with a Y. So I need to say you love the scope. Sweet. So I need to add Tony with a Y, as well as Tony here. There's a person who wants to remain anonymous, Jen, Carl, and Patrick. They are patrons on my Patreon account. My Patreon starts at $1 a month. And if you have $1, it helps me be able to up my the quality of my scopes. And I'm going to have a podcast soon, an audio podcast, and I'm working on scientistmel.com to where you'll be able to gain access to everything at one particular place and make it a bit easier for you. So I'm Scientist Mel everywhere except YouTube. They wouldn't give it to me. I have Science Email there. You can find me on Facebook. I'm finished already. Did you hop on last? Maybe put the link. It is in my bio on Twitter. The link is on my bio on Twitter, patreon.com/scientistmel. Great talk. Yay! So that has been the Science of Pseudoscience. I will happily send you any and all of the information that I used for this particular talk. And if you want any further information, you can use the hashtag HeyScientistMel. I check it every day. I get a lot of mentions on Twitter in my ads. And so if you use that hashtag, then I'm able to find those questions a lot sooner. And I'll be posting this particular one on YouTube. If you're a YouTuber as opposed to a Periscoper, you'll be able to find the higher quality productions there as well. Oh, it's not linked in the Periscope bio. Okay, I will fix that then. All right, and thank you again for hopping aboard. I hope you've enjoyed the Science of Pseudoscience. This was a much longer talk than I normally do. Normally they're about 30-45 minutes. This has been an hour, but that's okay. It was a good talk, excellent talk, yay! I'm so glad you guys liked it. You're welcome. And so again, if you have any questions, hit me up on Twitter. And I'm glad this was informative. Look for FDA approved things, please. Otherwise, you could just be giving poison to people, because that's happened and you might lose a sense like smell. So, feel so soon. Maybe time for another nature walk to derage. Yes, nature walks are great. Okay. Well, you guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you on Twitter. Thanks for stopping by. Bye.